way that I needed.
Well, what's weird is that, in all the last 2 decades of the music industry, in terms of the corporate stuff totally crumbling, at least in terms of, rock and roll and indie and stuff like that, but and country music. And it's the irony is that it's actually created this playing field where you can do literally whatever you want to figure it out.
Yeah, you can. It's it's interesting. I was kind of in the middle of. I came up when it was still fairly traditional, but things have changed so much in the industry, and there's so many outlets and mediums and ways for people to get discovered, to create music and to build a fan base. The gatekeepers are not nearly as important as they once were.
Yeah.
And it's, so great to have money and have support and have, to be able to do some of the traditional stuff. But I think it's also really cool for the artist and for the fans that you don't have to be dependent on those gatekeepers for stuff to get to you. There's so many different ways now that you can find the stuff that fits you. And just like the internet in general, you can find your tribe.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, you can find people that you identify with and groups like that. And musically you can sort of do a similar thing.
Well, it's like the one thing that hasn't changed, that's remained constant, is that adage: a good song is a good song is a good song.
Yeah, a good song is still a good song. I think in the past that maybe wasn't necessarily enough.
Yeah.
To get that song out into the world, and now you can have a good song, and you don't need a major label to get it out into the world or to make money off of it or for it to even be a hit. And that's opened up a pathway for thousands and thousands of people to make art and to have a career that wasn't always there. I mean, there's always a way to try and do something. I was independent for most of my career. I wasn't associated with a label, but it can be tough sledding, and you got to slug it out, and you still do. But there's just so many more ways now to reach a massive audience than there were 10 years ago, and that's the difference. Is everybody could always make music, but having a way to get it out to a large audience, it was a 1 in a million shot. And now you do the right song and you put it on the right platform, it can change your life.
Was there a moment for you that you knew a song could be whatever you wanted it to be?
How do you mean?
Like, there's always formulas to doing songs, but at the end of the day, too, the artists that we love the most, it's almost like they just followed it like a well-witch rather than trying to fit it into A, B, C equals D kind of thing,
Yeah.
Like any topic or any kind of thing. Like, I mean, a song could just be even just someone talking over some chords, and I guess the idea being that some people might get frustrated when they're trying to create or whatever, but it's usually one of those things where you just let it flow and see where it takes you. Was there a moment where you realized that a song could be whatever you had in mind in terms of what you wanted to say rather than a formula?
Yeah, I don't know when specifically that would have been. I know early on I was looking for the formula, and if I had an advantage in coming to that realization earlier, it was because the people that I was looking to were pretty inventive in the way they wrote songs. So I was looking at Bob Dylan, and I was looking at Leonard Cohen, and I was looking at Townes Van Zandt, I was looking at John Prine, I was looking at Chris Christopherson, and you know, I mean, maybe some people hear that list and think that's one-dimensional. To me, there was a whole world of possibility there, in that you know, it didn't have to be a traditional country structure, or it didn't have to be, even though a lot of it was, and a lot of the best stuff comes from these structures. And you know, I definitely tried to learn them and adapt to them, and create according to those guidelines, because I wanted to write a song like Lyle Lovett. But but you know, but also sometimes, you know, you hear some of those Lyle Lovett songs, or you know, he was doing, some of them are very traditional, and then there's some that he's just totally off the reservation and doing completely his own thing and singing about whatever comes into his mind. And that was liberating, and what I realized was, you know, that is a skill, but it's also what makes a writer unique, is finding their voice.
Yeah.
And I think I have some level of skill at mimicking or copying what other people do. I can, you know, do a passable version of a standard country song. But that what was going to make me stand out, and what was going to actually be enjoyable for me and make me hopefully a unique artist, was finding my own voice. And I think at some point early on, I mean, I certainly leaned heavily on sort of classic song structures, but realizing that whatever I brought to the table that was unique was what I needed to focus on to make my music unique, and to find my voice.
Yeah. Is there a piece of advice you carry with you now that maybe you initially blew off?
About life or
creativity or anything, something that you really hold close to you these days that maybe you didn't think much of when it was first told to you?
Well, I what I've been going back to for the last couple of years, and it's something that didn't resonate with me in the same way early on, was Ray Wylie Hubbard's. I think he has this in a song. It says, the days that my gratitude is higher than my expectations are good days.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, when I first heard that, I thought, well, that sounds cool, and that's just Ray being philosophical, and but I didn't. Yeah. It didn't quite hit me, and at some point a couple years ago, I started focusing on that, and I think for me it was realizing how many blessings I had in my life, and how lucky I was, and yet I was not happy. Yeah. And wasn't feeling content, and it really struck me, like, if I can't be happy now, because I'm always comparing myself to somebody else, or their life, or their art, or you know, that comparison can lead to depression and unhappiness, and I said, if I can't be happy now, I don't know that I ever will be, and I got to figure this out. And right about that time, I started thinking about that quote again, and being grateful that I'm able to do what I do, that I have the career that I have the life and the family that I have, that I'm drawing breath, that I have the friends that I have. I'm incredibly lucky and blessed, and to spend 1 minute feeling anything other than gratitude is a minute wasted, and is not really healthy for me, and not how I want to live my life. So that's something that it really changed things for me, was helped me change that perspective and turn that corner.
Well, my final question is, within the next year or so, you're coming up on 20 years as a performer, and what's been the biggest takeaway, or I guess maybe what surprised you most about this journey thus far?
What surprised me the most about the journey? Oh, I don't know. What surprised me? I mean, I'm still shocked sometimes when I look back that I've been able to do it. Like it seemed like such a long shot, and that I've been able to make a living for the most part, making art and singing songs was something. If you had told me 20 years ago that I'd be here doing this right now, one, I would have been ecstatic, and two, I'm not sure I would have believed you. That's no great revelation, but for me, I'm still a little bit. I have to pinch myself sometimes that I get to sit down every day with a guitar and write down my thoughts and make stuff up, and practice and then go out and do what I love to do, and that people come and support it and are affected by it. That's still a little shocking to me. But I guess.
Well, it's one of those things too. Like, I've been a writer for, over 12 years, and I'm like, I still can't believe I get away with this.
Yeah. I keep waiting for somebody to tell me that the wrong guy was blessed, and I got to give it back. And but I'll just keep moving forward and try and outrun them.